Say yes every day to the world and to your heart. Open up your eyes and let your spirit start. Say yes to the dreams you hold inside. Let your soul be your guide. And say yes every day.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Wednesday Wisdom. Today, we are joined by the amazing Bill Foss. He is a performance identity strategist who helps entrepreneurs, team leaders, and sales pros to stop carrying their old identity into their biggest opportunities. Oh, Bill, I cannot wait for this conversation because I know we're going to go deep. And we kick off Wednesday Wisdom with a very simple question. We want to hear a piece of advice from you, something that you kind of live by that you want to share with the audience.
I would be happy to. And thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here as well. It's a real simple piece of advice. Begin your day with this question. What would the ideal you do? It's that simple. So people go into every day and they have their schedule in front of them. They know what appointments they have, but they haven't contemplated how they want those appointments to go. They just know what they have to do. And what would ideal you do frames that event or that appointment or that, even if you're going on to a class, what would the ideal you do from that class? What would you gain from it? How would you like to improve? If you have an appointment, what would ideal you do? And if everything went perfectly, what's the outcome of that appointment? How would everyone end up at the end of that? What's the ideal outcome? And how would you show up to it? What resources do you need? What emotions are you struggling with before you even go? Rather deal with them this morning, asking what ideal you would do, as opposed to when you're in the middle of the scheduled appointment, right? So that's what it would be. Simple. What would ideal you do?
Simple, but yet so complex. Because
complex.
what I have seen just in life is I think people don't actually know what the answer to that question is, right? And I think you've seen the same thing.
That's right.
That it, to your point, that sounds really easy to me because I, in my mind, will always take things to the highest degree. Like, meaning, I don't think anything as just doing anything. Everything has to be to the highest degree of it. But it appears that majority of humans, right? Let's just classify as people, humans. I think a lot of times people are going through the motion of check, I did that, check, I accomplished that, check, that was the next step. But I don't know if they've truly thought, what does that highest level of yourself or who you anticipate to be or that vision, I don't know if they've ever thought of what that looks like. So, Bill, how do we get them there? How do we get them to really go through that process?
I chuckle because as long as I've been coaching, it's been quite some time, the first biggest challenge I have with clients is, what do you want? I don't know if you ever watched it's old now. What was the name of the program? Just went out of my head. But she was a fixer, right? Fixes problems. It was on for like 9 years. And her question when she met with a client was, look them in the eye, tell me what you want. And she said it in that tone. What do you want? And people don't take the time to understand what it is they want.
Nope.
And that clarity is freeing if you would just do it. But it's a big challenge for most people to give me what they want with some semblance of clarity. And worse, they don't know why they want it.
Ooh, and that's even more important, right?
You know, there's that big why thing that was going around. Cynic had the why and all of that.
What's your why?
What's your big why? And then you had what's your word? What's your word of the year thing? Well, that was totally misconstrued, by the way, but I won't go in that rabbit hole. But your big why is very simple if you will take the time to contemplate it, but most people don't. There's the old saying, right? They spend more time planning a vacation than they do planning their lives in many cases.
And I think the basic foundation is they're afraid.
They're afraid.
I
It's
think
exactly right.
most people are afraid of thinking, well, this is what I'm looking to accomplish, because they start running in their thoughts, well, that's not me. I'm not worthy of hitting that. I'm never going to reach that. So go ahead, Bill. Go
And what's
ahead.
the first question they ask? You've coached. What's the first question they ask? I don't know how
How?
I do that.
That's
How
exactly
does
right.
not matter because you
Nope.
haven't decided that's what you want to do yet. So how does not matter? We haven't even
No.
decided to do, right? And if we haven't decided that's what we want and why we want it, then how are you going to commit to it? And if you've decided but you haven't committed, then you haven't decided.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes complete sense to me, because I'm the type of person that has to plan out 5, 10 years in advance.
Yeah.
At every point of my life, I have been 5 to 10 years in advance. And I am planning out the next 5 to 10 years right now in motion. And every decision that I make from a personal or business standpoint ties to that 5 and 10 year plan. There is no question in my mind at any moment as to why I'm making a decision, because it's tied to that. For
Correct.
me, it gives me confidence. To me, there's no question. There is not even a question as to the decision I'm making, because I know why I'm making that decision.
It's the
But
filter.
but Bill, I'm fortunate. I'm sure you're fortunate. We understand this. Our brains have been programmed. I think I was born this way. I literally think I came out of the womb, like knowing this. But it is a struggle for a lot of people, and it's difficult, and there's so much complexity to people's lives, right? So where do you start? Where do you
Well,
start with this?
I'll go backwards to go forwards. Uh, I was not born this way. I actually was kind of lazy about life
Okay.
early in my career and in my life. I didn't like school all that much, and that, of course, disappointed many people around me. But I was very bright, learned easily, and because it was so easy, I didn't have to work at it. So I always was taking the easy way. But what was interesting about that is the easy way created the entrepreneur in me, because entrepreneurs are looking to fill opportunities with things that make life easier for people and that fill voids, right? So in being that led me to be entrepreneurial because I didn't want to have to work so much. I wanted to build something that would get the juices flowing and get me moving and that would serve, right? So the point I'm making is when I started to build my brokerage, I invested in real estate. I did a lot of things, and then I got screwed when I bought my first house. So I decided I needed to learn about real estate, and I became a
That
real
was how
estate.
I got into mortgage too. I
That's
got
how it
screwed when I
happens,
bought my
right?
first house too.
Nobody was born a mortgage person or a real estate person. We become them for some reason, and I was motivated to do that. And the point being, I grew the fastest growing franchise of a major brand uh, and was recognized as such. But what the people didn't see is it all looked good from the outside, but inside I had extended beyond my capacity, my what I call my identity range now. I now understand this stuff. And imposter syndrome started to find its way in. Like people are going to find out that I'm not this good. And I started questioning my abilities, and this spiral took effect. And I crashed, and it cost me dearly in so many ways, reputation and marriage and all of these things. It was major collapse because it wasn't natural for me to be where I was. And I had to find out what that collapse was all about. And that's my focus now. So I
Mm.
started teaching tactics, which helped my agents become very productive. Great, but most of them didn't do it. So then I started teaching strategy. If you overlay a strategy, and that's more of the why you're doing what
Yes.
you're doing, then the tactics will work better. And it did, but that didn't work. So I had to teach alignment. It has to
Okay.
be the right thing for you. What is good for you isn't necessarily good for me.
Right.
And we in our industry tend to put people into a box. Do this system, that'll work for you, you'll be better for it. But if it's not who you are, you won't do it.
Right.
So then I started teaching alignment. That got better, but that still didn't work the way I wanted to. And I was still struggling. So then I said, okay, why is it that people don't do what they know they want to do, but they just don't? So they
Okay.
know what to do, they know how to do it, but they're not doing it. What's that? We only control our perceptions, our decisions, and our actions. That's all we control. Everything else happens outside of us. So then, okay, so perceptions, how do we perceive things? And what happens to create a perception? And there's a filter, right? Your brain gets conditioned, and those are your filters. And your conditioning is different than my conditioning.
Sure.
So we could have the same event, our perceptions are different. So what we have to do is work on our identity, the filters that filter our perceptions, our decisions, and our actions. That's where I am now. That's where my focus is, because identity first, everything else follows that.
Makes sense.
And that is not easy to do. It's simple, very simple, but it's not easy. That's the journey. So I wasn't out of the womb driven. I was out of the womb kind of not so much.
Wow.
I
But
made it.
you've probably heard this before, many times when you're quoting things like Simon Sinek and some of these other ones, right? And sometimes you hear people say that you're born twice, right? Yes, you're born initially, day one, we're born, right, from our parents. And then the second time you're born is when you finally realize why you're here, and that identity and that mission and that vision and all of that coming together. And I mean, I have to believe there's people that maybe never figure that out. I have to imagine there's many people that go through the entire life process and just kind of go through that motion of the day to day of checking off the list. Okay, I got up, I did this, let's do it again tomorrow. I did this. And that could, not be as fulfilling as going through what you just said and understanding that identity. Because when you have that identity, once again, oh, people see it. People see it clearly. Like, you show up, your identity shows up before you do. Before you're in the room, people know exactly why you're there, who you are, what you stand for. All of that is answered long before you even walk into that room. So, Bill, I know that's your focus now. I love this, right? We're so aligned. We'll use that word, aligned. You and I are so aligned in this path. And it's so magical when you do get someone to get to this process. So what have you seen, right? Give us an example of kind of taking someone through that. And I'm just curious, like, what life-changing have you seen from this?
Yes. So first of all, we aren't taught that we can choose. That's probably the biggest concern that I see out there, is we are conditioned through school and religion and all of these things that we are part of our day-to-day lives and our family and all of that. So we're conditioned. No one tells us we could choose to be a different person. There are, I believe, core traits that we are born with, a blessing or something that we're meant to do. But most people never find that because it's layered under all this other stuff. So I don't even want to get down that rabbit hole. That's a deep one. But
that is a deep one, but yeah.
It's a deep one. But the fact is that we can choose. Like, we can choose what our values are. We can choose what our personality traits are. We can choose what we become skilled at. We can choose to expand our range of abilities, right? And we were talking about the fact that some people don't ever challenge that because they aren't taught that they can, number one. When you do challenge it, it's uncomfortable. So most people fall back into their old habitual ways, hence where coaches and mentors come in. The people that help us through those blind spots, and we all need them. Because you can't, the old story, you can't read the label of a bottle from the inside. It's the same with us. We can't see what we can't see because we're in it so deeply, right? But once we begin to get that clarity, where we're going, why we're going there, and making the decision that that's what we're going to be and do and have, then we can begin to define, excuse me, who we would be, how we would have to be in that lifestyle. You have to become the person who lives that life. You don't live the life and then become the person. But no one chooses and begins to plan that for themselves, right? And that's what identity work is. It's who would you be being? And each day you start the day and you say, I'm going to set my day. Here's what it looks like. Here's the appointments and the outside stuff that's getting dumped in. But here's how I am going through it. As the ideal me, this is how it would go. At the end of the day, you look back at it and you say, this didn't go quite right. I learned this. This I wish I could have done better. And you release the energy of that because here you are. What did you learn? How will you be better? And next day you'd start again. What would ideal you do? And you begin to move toward that person thinking, here's what's important, thinking from the ideal, not from who you are today. Now, can you do that perfectly? No. If you could, you'd already be there. But it's a way to frame. Looking from is much different than looking up at a goal. Thinking from the goal, you begin to see with more clarity, with more breadth and width and clarity when you think from the goal or from the end.
So easier said than done, as we all know, us imperfect humans here. So I'm curious, in your experience, have you seen people at a certain place or a certain time in their life or a certain something clicks at some moment where they're a little more open to really see this because everything that you're saying, like I said, me and you could go on for days having this conversation because we are 100% aligned to this. But some people, we could say this over and over and they don't even understand the conversation. So what have you seen in terms of being at that point in your life or point in your career or whatever to where you're like, this, I've seen people transition into this, or it doesn't matter?
Well, I'm going to give a little bit of a negative warning.
Go ahead.
Those that don't see it, like I didn't see it years ago when I faced my collapse, it's devastating. And so I'm sort of on a mission to help people see it before they experience it. And you can see it, the symptoms of it, very easily from the outside. The client I just talked to you about that I got off the phone with a moment ago. He does this in production. He hits this ceiling and then he hits this point where he gets scared. So he starts going like crazy again and hits the ceiling, gets scared, gets the ceiling, gets scared. Well, guess what? You can only do that so long.
Yeah.
And then you blow up. Something's going to break. And if you keep at that ceiling too long, you'll break. If you fall below it, you'll break because you'll begin to criticize and life will fall apart. Either way, if you go I call it the identity range method. We have a range that we work within.
Yep.
The mistake we make is trying to break through by pushing higher without becoming a person who can handle that new identity, that new level. And, we do it either by growing into it over time, or we choose to expand it and choose to be different. It's up to you, right? And I think from some degree, when you say you were born that way, some people have a much broader identity range than others. They're born with it.
Yeah.
Their environment developed it differently, but not everyone had that opportunity. And the choice is where the point I'm making. We can choose to notice, I keep hitting that same ceiling. I've been doing it for 3 years. The market goes down, I go down with it. The market goes up, I go up with it, but I'm not going above the market at any point in time substantially. So how do you become someone who goes from here to there? So you asked me a while ago, what happens when somebody gets this? I have an LO I was working with for about a year and a half. When I started with him, he was closing 4 to 5 transactions consistently a month. He was frustrated because he wanted to be closing 10.
Right.
Within it was actually not even 6 months. In 4 months, he was closing 7 and had a pipeline of 11 for a pace. That's almost double.
Yeah.
It actually is double when he started hitting the 11s.
Right.
Right? But nothing else changed.
Wow.
His activities didn't change. The results changed. The way the results change is because he was showing up differently. And he was showing up.
Oh, that's that showing up before you're even in the room, right?
Exactly. And he was able to turn away business from those referral partners that were sending him crap. I said, why are you taking that stuff? He said, because I need the business. I said, if you were doing 10 a month, do you need the business?
No.
He said, no. I said, then think like you're the person that's closing 10 a month. And when you
Exactly right.
plan your day, think from there. And when you interview somebody that's referred by one of your referral partners that doesn't match your criteria,
They
cut
know.
the string
They
because you don't
know.
need them. But he was thinking like a 4 or 5 transaction or closed loans a month person. Think from the 10 and you'll make different decisions. That's the whole,
Absolutely.
what would ideally you do?
That's the whole I refer to it as your temperature. Like the thermostat, right? Where you have that comfort zone that you stay right at that temperature. And to your point, it's exactly the same thing, right? And we control that. This is why, I mean, we've read many a book and heard many of a story that multimillionaires can lose everything and they come right back and become multimillionaires again. How many times have you seen people that are successful at one thing, they can even go all the way backwards and they come back because in their mind, they
They're
are
already
highly,
that.
they're already that. It never changed.
I want to talk about a couple of points you made. The comfort zone. The
Yeah,
comfort zone is one of those words that's thrown around the self-help industry and coaching all the time. You can be within your comfort zone and still not have the capacity to go further. What I mean by that is your identity range, your capacity has two things. Range, I use the example of my patience years ago. I was very patient with my children, but when I was into the role of being the business owner, I was not very patient at all.
right.
So I have this range of patience with my kids, but not with my business. What would it be like if I had that range of patience everywhere?
Right.
So I have a horizontal range where I can move from place to place to place and carry certain traits there. That's your range. Then you have capacity, more of the vertical line. How much weight can you handle? How much pressure can you handle in each of those scenarios before you start to default to some person you're not
Yeah.
going to be very happy with, right? So that's range and capacity. Comfort zone is a feeling. It's not a thing. It's not a structure. It's how you feel about something. And if you're even if you have a broad range of capacity, you can be uncomfortable within that
Sure.
and not activate all of your potential, or you can push your comfort zone beyond it, but will collapse back to your range. So, comfort zone is a feeling, identity range is who you are within the role that you're talking about. That's a big difference. How you think and act and function is much different than how you feel about how you're thinking, acting, and functioning.
Makes sense. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Bill, I'm so happy that you have dialed into this, really gotten, specific to this because it is life-changing for those that are ready and are on this journey. So thank you for staying on that journey and helping so many. As we wrap up, two things, okay? First off, we're going to tell people where they can find you and learn more about you. And then we'll wrap up with our last question. So, how can they learn more about you?
BillFoss.com.
That's
Or you
easy
can,
enough.
yeah, it's easy enough. If you want to read my book, you can go to billfoss.com/books and order my book. And that's the easiest way to reach me. You can
I love
email
it.
me at bill@billfoss.com if you want to talk to me.
There you go, billfoss.com. All right. Well, thank you so much. As we wrap up, we always end. I believe that we are planting seeds at all times. As we say things, we're planting actions and applying it to the world. So I like to end with something that is unlimited. If I took out my magic wand and I said, Bill, you have unlimited resources, unlimited knowledge, unlimited potential of any one thing that you could do at this time, what would that be?
It goes right to what we're talking about. If I could tell people and I could raise our children to know that they can choose who they're being and show them how to manage that decision and commit to that, that would change everything in our world. Everything. Right now, too many people, you said it yourself, are bouncing down the road day after day, doing it over and over again, never making a choice, never committing to the choices they make, and never been told that you can become a different person that you choose to become, that you want to be. And they don't know how to do it. And if I had a magic wand, I'd teach everybody.
I love it. And you're doing that. Just it might be in a small
I was going
increments
to say
at a
no magic
time,
wand magnitude, though.
but we want to do it. We want to do it in a large, large
All over the
scale.
place. That's right.
Well, first step, everyone reach out to Bill, connect with him, follow him, get his book, learn more because I can tell you just from my own life, I knew I could create the world that I wanted. I live every day of my life like that. I will go out of this world squeezing every bit of ounce of anything that I can get out of it. And that is how I live my life. And I wish that for all of you. Bill, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Keep shining bright. And everyone, have a great day.
And thank you for your energy.